like people. They lived like people did. They, had little lodges and had fires, and the animals really wanted to learn to find the spirits. And they just didn't know how to find the spirits. So the animals asked the wise owl, how can we find the spirits? And the owl said, well, you're just going to have to ask the spirits. So send the whippoorwill on a journey to the land beyond the sky and ask the spirits. So the whippoorwill went off on a long, hard journey to the land beyond the sky, and met the spirits, and the spirits said, here's some seeds to a very special plant. We want you to plant these seeds and thank the Mother Earth and the Father Sky and the four winds, the messengers, and plant it all over. And then we want you to go to this really special place and dig this stone that's red like the blood of the Mother Earth. And you take this sacred stone and you make a pipe out of it. And then take this plant, and after it's grown, thank the Mother Earth, thank the Father Sky, thank the four winds, the messengers, and then take your pipe and put it in your pipe, and when you dug that stone out of the ground, you're going to thank the Mother Earth and the Father Sky and the four winds, the messengers. And when you light your fire with this special plant in this sacred stone, the smoke will come up and call the spirits. And the spirits will come and listen to you. So for generations, the animals and then the people, they would go to this special place in the earth where the sacred stone was, and they would dig out this sacred stone, and they would thank the Mother Earth and the Father Sky and the four winds, the messengers, and they would sometimes they would trade it to somebody who maybe couldn't make the journey. And it was, this very special stone. And they would take this plant, or sometimes they would trade to somebody else who didn't maybe live in an area that it would in. And every time they would thank the Mother Earth, thank the Father Sky, the four winds, the messengers, and all the spirits. And then one day, somebody was walking through the woods and they saw the plant. And they went, oh, cool! And they just grabbed it. And they didn't thank the Mother Earth or the Father Sky or the four winds, the messengers. And they stuck it in any old pipe. And they lit it up. And from their fire, a great big smoke cloud came out. And the whippoorwill came out and said, whoever shall defile my plant will feel the pressure of my wings around their neck. Can anybody tell me what that plant was? It was tobacco. Tobacco is known and a sacred plant. It was actually used for lung problems. And still to this day is used as a sacred medicine plant for the people. That's it.
Bathtubs and BB guns. I'm checking out the magazine aisle at my local grocery store, searching for a copy of Oregon Hunter. Standing next to me is a large white man in a Realtree camouflage jacket. You know, one of those jackets with patterns on it that look like leaves and tree bark have adhered themselves to the human body. I'm wearing the same type of jacket. And I have on the same type of blue jeans. I'm not wearing a hat. He is. It is a red baseball cap with white lettering. It says, Fry Rubio. As I reach out to take the magazine I want from the shelf, The man turns his head and notices me standing next to him. His head jerks back to face the magazines so quickly that his abrupt movement startles me. I smirk. Then, a boy of about 10 years old runs around the corner and asks, "Dad, can I please have a Field and Stream?" He shakes his head. "Please?" And he smiles. I know that smile. I used to wear one just like it when my dad bought me copies of that same magazine. It was different for me though. Because at 10 years old, I was definitely all about Field and Stream, outdoor life, and Peterson's hunting. You couldn't just pick up those magazines at a grocery store where I lived though. You had to go to a magazine kiosk or a magazine stand to find a specialty item like that in Southern California. And my dad wasn't too thrilled about me having magazines of that nature. The reason for Dad's apprehension had nothing to do with hunting or fishing. Rather, he was concerned with me reading those magazines because of the political views he felt were sometimes expressed in writings and advertisements that celebrate the culture of hunting and fishing. Let's face it, you don't pick up a copy of Field and Stream and see articles written for or by people of color. You didn't when I was a kid, you don't now. And looking back on it, I completely understand my dad's unease. But at that point in my life, hunting and fishing wasn't anything other than hunting and fishing. And it's still like that for me now, in the pure sense of the axe. Back then, I'd done nothing but catch a few trout from stock ponds, and it would be a decade or so before I actually set foot in the forest for the distinct purpose of hunting. I was naive to my father's concern, even though he had articulated it to me on more than one occasion. Dad would have preferred that I had not read such magazines, but refusing to foster my choice of reading would have put him at odds with the way he raised my sister and me. "I will buy you any book that you want to read," Dad said. To both of us. He said this often. It was an oath. To this day, if I'm in a bookstore and I want to push my luck with my father and I see something I really want to read, he'll buy it for me. He will do so begrudgingly, given that I am now a grown man and perfectly capable of buying my own books. But still, he meant what he said. His policy extended to magazines, pamphlets, newspapers as well. Dad also assigned reading, and sometimes tailored it to our interests. Hatchet, Call of the Wild, My Side of the Mountain were assigned early on, followed by Faulkner's The Bear. The works of Henry David Thoreau, Walt Whitman were also added to the list. When I try to explain what sparked my obsession with the pastimes of hunting and fishing, I think back to the excitement I felt when Dad would acquiesce and drive me to the big magazine stand on Ventura Boulevard, the way I would climb back into the car and frantically flip through pages, get home, run upstairs into my room, and devour every article. When I attempt to pinpoint how I came to desire a life in the outdoors, I think about how I stare at all those pictures of burly old white dudes with their latest catch or kill and imagine myself in their place. In rural parts of America, 10-year-old kids go hunting with their dads. In suburban Los Angeles, I hunted magazines with my old man. And we never came back empty-handed. Then, there's Mom. Immigrants experience America very differently than those of us who are born here. The process of integrating into a society with a completely different cultural paradigm and social structure than the one you were raised in presents an immense challenge. Add a language barrier to that struggle and you might start to get a picture of what life was like for my mother at age 12. My mother is one tough gallete. That's cookie for you gringos. She is hardcore, Old Testament. Example. There's a painting that hangs on the wall of my home I was raised in. It is a well-known illustration by Jorge Gonzalez Camarena. And my mother placed it in an entryway so that it faced her children as they left home each morning. The painting, which is entitled La Conquista, is part of a larger mural entitled La Fusión de los Culturas, in which an Aztec jaguar warrior is depicted killing a Spanish conquistador. The Aztec has leapt onto the armored horse of the conquistador and driven a spear through the neck of his enemy. The Spaniard is reeling back in his saddle, impaling the Aztec with his sword. The two warriors are locked in an embrace of death. Behind them is a blazing orange fire and crumbling temples. This was Mom's message to us. Her side of the family can be traced back to Aztec blood. And as if the placement of the painting didn't speak for itself, she made sure we understood. As soon as you step out that door, It's war, every day. When you come back here, you're safe. But out there, it's war, and you never surrender. See what I mean when I say she's poor? I remember the first time I told that story to Mom and the painting to one of my ex-girlfriends. It completely terrified her, and she legitimately believed I was raised in unnecessarily cool fashion like some warmongering dictator. But said ex-girlfriend was a small-town, lily white coffee shop barista from Oregon raised by peaceniks. She had no idea what it's like to be a person of color in America, and certainly no clue as to the fears that resided in the immigrant mother of 2 biracial children. America was not friendly to my mother. She had to learn everything on her own. Her parents were as vulnerable and naive as she was in their new country. To say that Mom mastered self-sufficiency would be a gross understatement. She has thick skin and would literally take a bullet for her children. But she knew she couldn't always protect us, so she built us a certain way. You can do anything you want to in this country as long as you work hard, she would say. So, when I expressed a deep interest in fishing and hunting from the beginning, Mom was behind me all the way. It started off in the bathtub. I was 3 years old, obsessed with fish and fishing, but not yet ready to use real fishing gear. Mom bought me a little tackle box and taught me how to tie knots and float tackle in the tub with short pieces of fishing line. She taught herself how to do this so she could teach me. My mother's an excellent teacher. I had a freakish attention span for a 3-year-old and could spend up to 2 hours by myself intensely focused on knots and floating tackle. I recall staring into the white acrylic fiberglass bottom of that tub and trying to will fish to grow into the water. So I could catch them. When I got older, my folks bought me my first fishing rod. It was a little closed-face spin-cast Daiwa reel on a pole that couldn't have been more than 4 feet long. I loved it. That reel and rod combo saw more of the backyard than anything else. By then, I graduated from the bathtub to the swimming pool.
Yeah.
I'd rush home, tie on a spinner, lure, and spend hours casting into the chlorinated water. I learned how to cast line and make my lures come alive long before I ever actually fished for anything. My interest in shooting and hunting came a bit later, but once it was established, my parents' curriculum was just as thorough. Most American boys go through a phase where they are attracted to toy guns and playing war with each other. I was no different. During this phase, Dad read me the Iliad and assigned the Red Badge of Courage to my ever-expanding book list. I never exclusively associated guns with hunting or war, and that's probably because Dad was always quick to tell me that they were just tools. For a man who never owned a gun in his life and didn't really like them, he was professorially objective when he spoke to me about firearms. My first contact with anything that looked like a rifle was at the happiest place on earth, Disneyland. There, in Frontierland, Mom would take me to the animatronic shooting range, complete with sound effects and electronically triggered pop-up targets. I logged some serious range time there. Eventually, I graduated to suction cup dart guns that could be used at home. From there, it was only a matter of time until my 10th Christmas when beneath the tree I found the gift that most 10-year-old boys with similar interests would die for, a Red Ryder BB gun. The backyard was my shooting range. No soda can was safe. Dad dispensed theory, Mom assigned practice. Between them, I was in good hands, and when it came to investing in my love for the outdoors, my folks had a strong partner in my grandfather. Gramps was a black man from the South, a veteran of World War II. What I remember most about him was his laugh. It was a high-pitched, full-belly cackle. It's the same laugh my dad has, the same laugh I inherited. My grandfather was what some people will call a man's man. He enjoyed sports, red meat, strong drink, and the outdoors. He was overjoyed to know that his grandson took interest in hunting and fishing. My father had not taken these pursuits as a boy, and the fact that I did serve to bridge a gap between the two of them. Mom and Gramps got along well. They respected each other a great deal, probably because they were both such rugged people chosen by a country that refused to accept them in their formative years. Gramps was also hardcore. If Mom was Old Testament, he was the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Ask my mom about my grandfather and she'll smile and say, they don't make him that tough anymore. And they don't. But for all this grit, Gramps was not much of a teacher. I don't think he had the patience for it. So he struck a deal with my folks. They were to get me prepared, and when I was ready, he would take me out to do the real thing. The first time I caught a fish, I was 8 years old, and I was with Gramps. He took me to a spot in Agora Hills called Trout Dale, just outside of LA County. The place had 3 ponds stocked with rainbow trout. After paying a $7 entry fee, we set out to the pond with the biggest trout. You could rent a bamboo pole for $20 and a cup of corn for $7. But we brought our own poles and used worms for bait. This worked right away. I remember the bobber singing, I remember reeling in the fish, and I recall the white bucket and the red plastic device Gramps used to pull the hook from the trout's mouth. I didn't even want to fish again. I just stared at the trout in the bucket, amazed at what I had done. Hunters and anglers often talk about the bond that exists between them and the buddies they go into the field with. A lot of this is romanticized, but a great deal of it is very real. Fishing isn't about catching fish. Hunting isn't about killing game. They are acts of volition that place a person in the lap of nature and remind us what it means to be part of the natural world. When we share this act of volition and experience the natural world together, we grow. It is this shared sense of growth that creates the bond which outdoorsmen often write about. Gramps and I had that bond. First time I shot a rifle, it was with him. First time I went on an overnight fishing trip, first time I went crabbing, crawdad grabbing, it was with him. He was my first fishing buddy, and he would have been my first hunting buddy too, but as he would say, he had to go see the man upstairs before we ever got the chance to hunt together. He left me his hunting rifle when he died, and while he was still alive, I got the chance to bring him a piece of venison for my first deer. I took the animal in the forest of Washington. I was 20 years old at the time, attending college in Olympia. I remember calling Gramps to tell him I'd hunted and succeeded. My grandmother said she hadn't seen him so proud in years. Honey, your granddaddy told everyone in the neighborhood about your deer. He outside telling the mailman right now, she said. There's a part of me that returns to the outdoors specifically to visit with Gramps. On more than one occasion, I've knelt before an impressive catch or kill and whispered the words, "Can you see me now, old man?" One time on a lonely stretch of the Schuylkill River with a 25-pound salmon in my arms, I screamed those words at the sky. I often think of my family when I hunt and fish. I'm prone to venture into the bush by myself, so there's no shortage of quiet time to reflect on how I became the lone Mexican woodsman of the clan. The word woodsman can't really sum it up, though. I am my father's pupil, my mother's soldier, and my grandfather's hero. But given who I am and where I come from, I'm more of an adventurer than anything else. I could have stayed in the city and made a life there, a good life, with a solid foundation and a promising future, but I chose adventure. And looking back on it, it all makes sense, sort of.
The Gaza Strip is part of Palestine, and Palestine has been occupied by Israel since the 1948. Gaza is a small piece of land. It's only 27 by 6 miles, so it's basically like from West Eugene Target to Springfield High School. And the length is from Junction City to Creswell, and there's 2 million people living there. Gaza has been under blockade since 2007. The borders are closed, poor access to most of the medical supplies, and polluted water. We also get 4 to 7 hours of electricity a day, and we never know when it's going to be on, late at night or during the day. It is very hard and complicated to travel in and out of the Gaza Strip. If I want to go visit home, I will have to travel to either Egypt or Jordan and get a bus to get to the border. It only takes 4 to 5 hours from Cairo to Gaza border, but it takes 2 to 3 days to get there because of all the checkpoints and restrictions that Egypt has made for Gazans. I grew up in a war zone where you never know when and where the next bomb is going to hit. The Israeli drones are flying and watching us 24/7, just buzzing, and it gets louder at night when the electricity is off and the city is dark and quiet. I did not realize that this noise would be a trigger till I was in Turkey, and there was a drone flying above my city where I used to live. That moment was very chaotic. I felt dizzy, sick, and my brain started throwing flashbacks from home, family, the war, and the dark nights on the beach. I left home in 2016 on scholarship to Turkey. I was 17 at the time, and I traveled alone without knowing anything outside of the open air prison, which is Gaza. So I got lost a lot. A lot of people took advantage of me. I lived there for a few years, learned Turkish, studied psychology, and then applied for a scholarship to the University of Oregon. You probably wonder why Oregon, Eugene. One of my family members was traveling to Turkey for fun, and I met her there. And we get along really well, and decided to complete my education here in Eugene. You probably only see or hear about Gaza when there's a war going on, but there's so much more for us as Gazans. Since I left home, I missed a lot of things. I missed the simple life that we have. I missed making most of the food ourselves, the spices, the bread, on fire, so much more. And the benefits from not having modern technology where we all still gather and spend quality time together without distraction. I miss the garden and the olive trees. I moved to the US to Springfield 3.5 years ago, and it was a few months before COVID hit. Was not able to be in college for more than 2 terms, and then had to switch to online school. It was a very hard time, I'm sure it was for everyone. I could not make friends or do things COVID-wise, and also I needed to learn the culture, the rules, the jokes, and all sort of things that are just a lot different from anywhere else. But within the last 1.5 years, when things started opening up a bit, I was able to start enjoying things and try to find things to make me feel like that I belong here. I started doing what people in the Pacific Northwest do. Go on hikes, camp, and a little bit of read as well. Every time I go camping and see the stars, it reminds me so much of home, because the electricity is off most of the time and at night, and we don't have big factories, so the air is not polluted there. You can always see the stars clearly every night. I have been to Seaside out on the coast. It's also a spot where I just sit there and feel like I'm home. It's a small town where people stay up late and build fires on the beach. Living in Eugene has been an experience that provided opportunities of joy, growth, and meeting amazing people who brought me close to home. Throughout all my travels, the flashbacks of home have been traumatic, but living in Eugene has created flashbacks of positive family memories, like having at least singing meals with my host family. Thank you all.
The song that I'm going to share is called Woman of Africa, which is a celebration of all the women that I grew up around who would sell tomatoes or candy on the street trying to raise funds for their families. They were so kind to these women. I don't know if it's because they were trying to sell something to me, but I remember them, you know, it worked. It worked. So Woman of Africa. First of all, I didn't grow up in a very traditional Zimbabwean family. I was brought up Christian, and here I am playing a sacred traditional instrument, which is actually an instrument that was banned during the colonial times because the colonialists believed that each time this instrument was played, there was energy, a spirit that was lifted that would give the locals power and strength to keep pushing. He did not want that. And so this instrument was deemed demonic, banned and shunned, and the people of Zimbabwe could not share this instrument freely. And so, as I was, just playing melodies like the song I just played, I've just been feeling this deep call for me to learn the traditional songs that were sang by my ancestors so that it can help me feel grounded. I'm so far away from Zimbabwe. I have no opportunity to go to the village to talk to the elders from back home, who can teach me the ways of my ancestors. And then I decided to listen to the songs that they sang. And this next song that I'm going to share is a new piece that I'm still learning and working on, a traditional piece. And it's just asking for the ancestors to return to us, to help us, to give us that strength, that resilience that our ancestors had back in the day. And hopefully the more, that energy is brought about, then the more power and confidence we have as Zimbabweans to stand and share this instrument with everyone. And so this song is called Mira, which means we're going to stand strong. And it's in Shona, which is my native language, so if you don't understand the lyrics,